Shomo 1, 30 p.m. Hi friends. Not a complicated question, not a philosophical riddle, a simple philosophical riddle. A simple queer moment before I move on. What did you do with yesterday? I mean, really, what did you do with it? Because yesterday is gone now. It left at midnight without saying goodbye. It didn't knock on your door and say, "Hey, I'm heading out. Did you use me well?" It just left quietly, like every day before it, and like every day that will come after it. Here's what scares me. Here's what wakes me up at night. Most people, and I mean the overwhelming majority of people on this planet, will live their entire lives without ever truly understanding what time is. They'll think time is something in the background, like elevator music. Something that's just there, playing softly while they scroll through their phones, while they watch another episode, while they say, "I'll start Monday," while they wait for the right moment that never comes. And then one day, one ordinary Tuesday or Thursday or Sunday afternoon, they'll be sitting somewhere quiet and it will hit them like a punch to the chest that their life is more than half over, that the dreams they had at 20 are still sitting in a box somewhere unopened, that the people they love are getting older, that the version of themselves they always imagined becoming is still waiting for them to show up. That moment is one of the most painful moments a human being can experience, and I don't want that for you. I did not come here today to inspire you for an hour and then send you back to the same life. I came here to shake something loose inside you. To say something that your best friend should have said to you years ago, that your parents maybe didn't know how to say, that you've been running from in the quiet moments between the noise. Time is life. They are not two separate things. Every second that passes is a second of your life that passes with it. You cannot separate them. You cannot save time for later the way you save a sandwich. Time does not wait for you to be ready. Time does not care about your excuses. Time does not slow down when things get hard or speed up when you ask it to. It just moves, relentlessly, silently, perfectly indifferent to whether you used it or wasted it. And here's the thing that most motivational speeches won't tell you because uncomfortable, because it stings a little. Most of us are wasting it, not because we're lazy, not because we're stupid, not because we don't care, but because nobody ever sat us down and told us the truth about what's happening every single day that we sleepwalk through our lives. So that's what today is about. That's why we're here. Not to feel good for an hour, not to clap and cry and then go back to the same patterns tomorrow. We're here because something in you knows that you have more to give. Something in you knows that the life you're living is not the life you were built for. Something in you knows that time is moving and you are not. Let's talk about that something, because it's important. There's a version of you that you carry around in your heart. You've had it since you were a child. Since you were a child. A version of you that is free, that is fearless, that is doing meaningful work, that is surrounded by love and purpose and energy. A version of you that wakes up in the morning and actually wants the day to begin. You know that version. You've visited it in your dreams. You felt its edges in moments of inspiration, when a song hit you just right, or you read something that made you feel like the universe was speaking directly to you. That version is not a fantasy. That version is not naive. That version is the truest version of you. And it is waiting. And it is waiting. It has been waiting with incredible patience, incredible loyalty, incredible faith in you, even when you had no faith in yourself. Even when you chose the couch over the calling. Even when you chose comfort over courage. But here's what I need you to understand today. And I need you to really hear this. That version of you has a deadline. Not a metaphorical one, a real one. A real one. Because you are a human being on a planet with a finite amount of time, and every day you choose not to become who you're supposed to be is a day that is gone forever, not delayed. Gone? The 27-year-old version of you that could have started the business didn't start it. That year is done. It doesn't mean it's too late. It is never too late to begin. But it does mean that you will never get that particular year back. And that matters. That should mean something to you. I want to tell you about a man I know. I'll call him David because he asked me not to use his real name, and I respect that. David grew up in a small town. Not a poor town, not a rich town, just an average, ordinary, forgettable kind of town where the biggest dream most people had was to get a steady job and retire without too much trouble. David was different. As a kid, he was electric. He had this laugh that could fill a room. He had ideas, creative, wild, ridiculous ideas that he would stay up until 2 in the morning thinking about. He wanted to build things. He wanted to make things that people would feel. He wanted to create. And then life happened to him, the way it happens to a lot of us. He graduated, got a job, not the job he wanted, just a job, because rent was due. Because his girlfriend at the time thought the creative stuff was risky. Because his dad, who he loved deeply, gently suggested that it might be better to have something stable. And David said, okay. He said, okay, I'll do this for now, and then later I'll do what I really want to do. That was at 23. I met David at 41, and the first thing I noticed about him was that his eyes were tired. Not tired like he hadn't slept, tired in a deeper way. Tired the way a person gets when they've been living someone else's life for 18 years. He still had the ideas. He would pull out a notebook sometimes and show me things he'd sketched. Brilliant things, honestly, remarkable things. But there was a sadness around them. Like visiting an old friend you've neglected, he'd look at those pages and say, I'm gonna do something with these. Soon. I just need to get through this quarter at work and then I'll have some time. Soon. Later. When things settle down, when the kids are old, when the mortgage is paid off, when I have more energy, when I find the right moment. Do you hear what that is? That is the sound of a life being deferred. That is the sound of time being wasted by someone who doesn't realize they're wasting it. Because David wasn't watching TV all day. David wasn't being reckless. David was working hard, being responsible, doing what he was told he should do. And that's the most heartbreaking kind of time wasting there is. The kind that looks like productivity on the outside, while your soul quietly starves on the inside. I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow. I'm not telling you to be irresponsible. I'm telling you to look at your life honestly and ask yourself, am I building towards something that means something to me, or am I just filling the days? Because there's a difference. There is a massive universe-sized difference between a life that is being lived and a life that is being managed. Managing your life means keeping all the plates spinning. Work, bills, obligations, other people's expectations. Living your life means waking up with a sense of direction. Means feeling, at least some of the time, like you are moving towards something that matters to you. Not just surviving, not just maintaining, actually moving, growing, becoming. And time, the time that is passing right now as you read this, as you breathe, time is either carrying you toward that, or it is carrying you away from it. There is no neutral. There is no standing still. You are always moving in some direction, whether you choose the direction or not. I want to talk about something that I think is one of the greatest thefts in modern human life. And it's not something that's being done to us by some villain or some institution. It's something we are allowing. We are participating in. Sometimes we are paying for the privilege of doing it to ourselves. I'm talking about distraction. Understand that we live in the most distracted era in human history. Never before have human beings had access to so much stimulation, so much noise, so much content, so much opinion, so many notifications, so many ways to feel busy while accomplishing absolutely nothing of lasting value. And I want to be clear, I am not anti-technology. I am not standing here telling you to throw your phone in a river and go live in the woods. I am saying something much more important than that. I am saying that your attention is your life. Read that again in your mind. Your attention is your life. Whatever you give your attention to is what your life becomes. If you spend 3 hours a day watching other people live interesting lives on a screen, your life becomes the couch you watched it from. If you spend your mental energy worrying about things that are outside your control, your life becomes the anxiety that lives in your chest. If you give your best hours, your clearest thinking, your highest energy moments to things that require nothing from you, you will become someone who is capable of nothing that requires everything from you. And greatness, the kind of life you feel calling to you, the version of yourself you can barely bring yourself to imagine because wanting it too clearly feels dangerous, that requires everything. Not sometimes, not occasionally. It requires your full, focused, intentional attention, consistently, over time, while you are tired, while you are scared, while people around you don't understand what you're doing or why. Teddy Roosevelt. And I love this quote. I want you to write it on your mirror if you have to. He said, nothing in the world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, difficulty. Now, people hear that and they think he's being harsh. He's not being harsh. He's telling you the truth that the algorithm will never tell you. He's telling you that the things that matter most in life are not free. They cost you something, they cost you time, they cost you comfort, they cost you the approval of people who would rather you stay small because your smallness makes them feel okay about their own. I want to tell you about another person. Her name was Maya, and Maya was someone who had every reason to give up. She grew up in circumstances that most people in this room or watching this video would find unimaginable. She grew up poor in a way that meant sometimes there wasn't food. She grew up in a house with violence in it. She grew up feeling like the world had decided she didn't matter before she'd had a chance to prove otherwise. And she believed it for a while. She believed what her environment was telling her about herself. But Maya had something. She had this thing that I believe every human being is born with, but that most people lose somewhere along the way. She had a refusal, a deep, stubborn, almost irrational refusal to accept that the story she'd been handed was the only story she could live. She didn't have money. She didn't have connections. She didn't have a mentor or a network or anyone telling her it was possible. What she had was time. And she decided, really decided, the way you decide something when your back is against the wall, that she was going to use every moment she had. She worked during the day, hard and glamorous work, the things that people said at the end when there was nothing left to pretend, when the performance was over and all that remained was the truth. And do you know what the number one regret was? It wasn't, I wish I'd worked more. It wasn't, I wish I'd been more careful. It wasn't, I wish I'd played it safer. The number one regret was this. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I want you to let that land, because those are not the words of a fictional character. Those are the words of real human beings at the end of their real lives, looking back at the only chance they were given. And the thing they wished they'd done differently was to have been braver, to have chosen themselves, to have used their time in service of who they actually were, rather than who everyone else needed them to be. You have that chance right now, this moment, today, not after you fix everything, not when everything is aligned and comfortable and approved of. Right now, with your imperfect circumstances and your complicated life and your valid fears and your unfinished self. Right now is the only time you have ever had, and right now is enough. Let me talk about fear for a moment, because I think fear is the real reason most people waste time. Not laziness, not stupidity. Fear. Fear with 1,000 different faces. Fear dressed up as being realistic. Fear dressed up as waiting for the right time. Fear dressed up as, I need to do more research before I start. Fear dressed up as, what will people think? Fear dressed up as, I'm not ready yet. Here's the truth about readiness that I wish someone had told me 20 years ago. You will never be ready. There is no finish line in your preparation beyond which you magically become ready. Ready is a feeling that comes after you begin, not before. Not before. The confidence you're waiting for, the certainty, the feeling of knowing you can do it, that comes from doing it, not from thinking about doing it, not from planning it, not from researching it, from actually doing it, imperfectly, uncomfortably, with your hands shaking and your heart pounding and your brain screaming at you to stop. And I want to talk about the people who've done it, the people we call extraordinary, the people we put on posters and quote and admire from a distance. Because there is a lie we tell ourselves about those people, and the lie is that they were different from us, that they had something we don't. Some special ingredient, some particular gift, some form of certainty that we just weren't given. I've studied a lot of those people. I've read their stories, their journals, their letters, their interviews. And what I find again and again is not a story of someone who was never afraid. It's a story of someone who was afraid and moved forward anyway. Who didn't know if it worked and did it anyway? Who had people telling them it was impossible and believed in the possibility anyway? Who failed, sometimes publicly, sometimes humiliatingly, and got back up anyway? Winston Churchill. We think of him now as this towering, unshakable figure, the voice of Britain's finest hour, the man who refused to surrender. Do you know that Churchill spent the majority of his career being considered a failure? He was out of power for years. He was mocked. He was dismissed. He made real mistakes, costly ones. And he was in his 60s, which most people think of as the twilight of a career, when he became the leader who helped save Western civilization. The time he was given, he used. All of it, even the wasted years, weren't really wasted. They were building something in him that would be needed later. Oprah Winfrey, born into poverty in rural Mississippi, born to a teenage single mother, sexually abused as a child, told by a television producer early in her career that she was unfit for television news. Do you know what she did with that? She took it here. And she decided that she was going to become someone that no definition imposed on her by someone else could contain. She used her time. She used her pain. She turned the very things that were meant to limit her into the fuel for everything she built. JK. Rowling, before Harry Potter, was a single mother on welfare, clinically depressed, feeling like a failure by every measure she'd been taught to care about. She's spoken publicly about how dark period was, about feeling like she had failed at everything. And yet, and this is important, even in that darkness she was writing. She was using whatever time she had, not waiting for her life to get better before she started, using the hard time to build towards something. These are not fairy tales. These are human beings, with fear and self-doubt and bad days and people who doubted them and moments where they nearly quit. The difference between their story and the stories of people who never did anything with their gifts is not talent. It is not luck, though luck plays a role. The difference is what they chose to do with their time, day after day, when it was hard, when it was invisible, when it seemed to be leading nowhere. I want to shift now to something that I think is equally important, and it's something that is often missing from conversations about ambition and productivity and using your time well. Because sometimes the message around these things gets distorted, and people walk away thinking they need to hustle every second of every day and sleep 4 hours and never rest and sacrifice every relationship on the altar of their goals. That is not what I'm saying. That's not what I believe. And I actually think that approach, the grind at all costs, burn everything down for success approach, is itself a form of time wasting because it burns you out, because it disconnects you from the people you love, because it turns you into a machine chasing a version of success that, when you get there, turns out to be hollow. Because success that costs you your health, your relationships, your joy, your humanity, that is not success. That is just a more expensive form of misery. What I'm talking about is intentionality, awareness, the practice of actually choosing how you spend your days rather than just letting them happen to you. Presence, not just showing up, being present when you show up. Giving the things that matter your actual attention, not the leftover scraps of attention after you've given the best of yourself to things that don't matter. Because here's something that I think doesn't get said enough. The people you love, your children, your parents, your partner, your friends, they deserve your presence. Not just your physical body in the room while your mind is somewhere else. Not just the performance of being there while you're actually thinking about work or scrolling through your phone. They deserve the real you. The awake, engaged, fully here version of you. And the clock is running on that too. The time you have with the people you love is finite. Every parent in this room knows what I'm talking about. How fast it goes. How the baby that needed you for everything becomes the teenager who doesn't want your help, becomes the adult who has their own life. How your parents, who seemed like they'd always be there, are suddenly getting older in a way you can't ignore. Time is life, and life is these people. Life is these moments. The Sunday morning that felt ordinary at the time and that you'd give anything to have back years later. The conversation you didn't have because you were too busy or too tired or too caught up in something that you cannot now even remember. The hug that went quickly because you were in a hurry to get somewhere. These things are your life, not the trophies you win, not the money in your account, not the title on your business card. The moments, the people, the love that passed through your days. So I want you to think about time not just in terms of ambition and goals, but in terms of love. Am I giving time to the people I love? Am I giving time to the things that nourish me, that restore me, that make me feel human? Am I giving time to my own body, to my own soul, to the quiet and the stillness that every human being needs to function at their best and to feel at peace? Because wasting time isn't just about not working hard enough on your goal. Wasting time is also giving your best hours to people who don't value you, staying in situations that drain you year after year, spending your emotional energy on resentments and grudges and comparisons to other people's lives. All of that is time you could be using to actually live. Comparison. Can I talk about comparison for a moment? Because comparison might be the single most effective time thief that exists in the modern world. Social media has made it infinite. This comparison. We are now able to compare ourselves not just to the people in our neighborhood or our workplace, but to the curated highlight reels of millions of people all day, every day. And every minute you spend measuring your insides against someone else's outsides is a mine you could have spent building something real. Here is what comparison never tells you: the cost. It shows you what someone has, it never shows you what they paid. It never shows you the years of obscurity, the failed relationships, the mental health struggles, the things they gave up, the sacrifices they made, the nights they cried in their car, the version of themselves they had to be willing to lose in order to find the version you're now admiring from a distance. You see the summit, you don't see the climb. And so comparison is always unfair, always distorted, always guaranteed to make you feel like you're behind in a race you were never supposed to be running in the first place. Your life is not a competition with anyone else's life. It never was. The only meaningful comparison you can make is between who you are today and who you were a year ago. Are you growing? Are you learning? Are you becoming more of who you are meant to be? That is the only race, and it has no spectators. It only has participants. I want to talk about the morning. The morning is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think how you start your day is one of the most important decisions you make. Not because of some magical morning routine that everyone has to copy, but because the first hour of your day sets the tone for your internal state in a way that ripples through everything that follows. Most people start their day by immediately handing their attention to someone or something else: the phone, the news, social media, email. Before they have even had a full thought of their own, they are already processing other people's agendas, other people's opinions, other people's needs. And then they wonder why they feel reactive all day, why they feel like they're always playing catch up, why the day seems to happen to them rather than being shaped by them. The morning before the world gets to you is yours. It is perhaps the only part of the day that is entirely unconditionally yours, and what you do with it matters enormously. Not because someone else told you it should. It should. But because you are going to spend the rest of the day pouring yourself out at work, for your family, for your obligations. And if you don't begin with something that pours back into you, you will be running on empty by noon. Some people pray or meditate. Some people write. Some people read something that elevates their thinking. Some people exercise. Some people sit quietly with their coffee and actually think about who they want to be that day. The specific practice is less important than the principle. Start your day with intention. Start your day with some act that says, I am a person with an inner life, and that inner life matters, and I am going to attend to it before I attend to anything else. Because your inner life is where your life actually happens. Everything on the outside, the achievements, the relationships, the experiences, they are expressions of what is happening on the inside. If your inner life is chaotic, distracted, fearful, and confused, your outer life will reflect that eventually. If your inner life is growing, intentional, and grounded, your outer life will reflect that too. Not immediately, not without struggle, but it will reflect it. I want to come back to something I said earlier because I don't want to leave it unexamined. I said that it is never too late to begin. And I believe that completely. But I also want to be honest with you about what beginning means when you're not 22 anymore. When you have a mortgage and kids and a career that you've already invested years in, and a whole set of people who depend on you and expect things from you. Beginning doesn't always mean blowing everything up. Sometimes beginning means taking one small, consistent step in the direction of who you want to become while still honoring the responsibilities you have. 1 hour a day, one skill you're learning, one relationship you're investing in differently, one habit you're building, one conversation you're finally having, one door you're opening that you've had your hand on for years. Small is not weak. Small is how everything real gets built. Nobody builds a cathedral in a day. Nobody becomes fluent in a language in a week. Nobody builds a healthy body in a month. These things are built the way all enduring things are built, slowly, carefully, consistently, with faith in a process whose results are not immediately visible. The bamboo tree. You may have heard this, but let me tell you it because it bears repeating. When you plant a bamboo tree and you water it and you tend to it for 4 years, 4 full years, nothing visible happens, nothing you can see above the ground. And people who don't know this about bamboo would look at that patch of soil and say, nothing is happening, this isn't working, this isn't working. I'm wasting my time. But underground during those 4 years, the bamboo is building a root system so deep and so strong that it can support what comes next. And then in the 5th year, the bamboo grows up to 90 feet in 6 weeks. 90 feet in 6 weeks because of 4 years of invisible work. Your life is that bamboo tree. The work you're doing that no one sees. The growth that hasn't appeared yet on the surface. The roots you're building in the quiet, unglamorous, unrewarded hours. Those roots are real, those roots are real. They are the foundation of everything that is coming. Don't dig them up because you can't see them yet. Patience is not passive. Patience is not waiting around and hoping. Patience is continuing to do the work while you wait for the visible results. Patience is trusting the process when the process doesn't seem to be producing anything yet. Patience is one of the most active, courageous, demanding things a human being can practice. I want to talk about failure, really talk about it. Not the version of failure that gets cleaned up and put in a TED talk with a redemptive ending. The messy, real, devastating kind of failure that shakes you at your core and makes you genuinely wonder if you were wrong about yourself. Because that kind of failure is coming for you if you're really going for it. I need you to know that. I need you to be prepared for it. Not because I want to discourage you. I am the opposite of discouraged by failure. I am energized by it. I think failure is one of the most important teachers a human being has access to, but only if you let it teach you. Only if you stay in the room when it arrives instead of running from it or collapsing under it. Every significant thing that has ever been built was built through failure, not around failure, through it. Edison failed thousands of times before the light bulb worked. And when a reporter asked him about his failures, he said, and this is one of the great reframes in the history of human thought. He said, I have not failed. I have found 10,000 ways that will not work. That's not positive thinking. That's not naive optimism. That is a fundamentally different relationship to failure. That is seeing failure not as evidence that you can't do it, but as data about how to do it better. What if every failure in your life was data? What if every rejection, every mistake, every plan that fell apart, every relationship that ended, every venture that didn't work, what if all of that was information? Specific, invaluable, irreplaceable information about who you are, what you need, what works and what doesn't, what you're truly committed to, and what you just thought you were committed to. Because here's what I know about failure. The people who succeed are not the people who never fail. The people who succeed are the people who fail and refuse to let the failure become the final word about them. They're the people who, after the fall, look themselves in the eye and say, not I'm fine, not it didn't hurt, not pretending that nothing happened, but I'm still here, I still believe. I'm going to figure out what this is teaching me and I'm going to get back up. And they do, slowly, painfully, without applause, they get back up. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. Most of us can't sustain one difficult thing for 27 weeks. He walked out of that prison with his vision intact, his dignity intact, his commitment to his people intact. He had not spent his time in despair. He had spent his time preparing, studying, growing, becoming the leader that his country would need. 27 years he couldn't see the outcome. 27 years the world had mostly forgotten him or given up on him. And he just kept becoming who he was meant to be. I think about that, and I feel embarrassed about the things I've given up on, because they took too long, or got too hard. I think about that, and it makes me want to be braver. I hope it does the same for you. There's something I want to address directly now. Something that I think sits in the room whenever conversations like this happen, even if we don't name it. There will be people listening to this who are in genuine pain. Not the kind of pain that comes from not having reached your goals yet. Real pain, grief, loss, trauma, depression, Circumstances that are not just challenging but genuinely crushing. And I want to speak to you directly because the message of use your time, don't waste your life can sound cruel when you are in the middle of something that has brought you to your knees. If that is you today, if you are surviving right now, not thriving, just making it through, I want you to know that I see you. And I want you to know that surviving is not wasting time. Healing is not wasting time. Rebuilding yourself after something is broken you is not wasting time. The expectation that you should be performing at full capacity through every season of your life is a lie, and it is a cruel one. There are seasons for everything. There are seasons of planting and seasons of harvest and seasons of rest and seasons of survival. And the willingness to honor the season you're in, even when that season is dark and cold, is itself a form of wisdom. But even in the difficult seasons, there is usually something you can do. One small thing, one act of self-care, one step toward help, one conversation. One moment of looking up from the pain and orienting yourself toward even a tiny bit of light. You don't have to run toward the light. You can walk, you can crawl, you can just turn to face it. That is enough. That is more than enough. Because the direction matters more than the speed. Always. If you are moving, however slowly, in the direction of your healing and your becoming, you are not wasting time. You are using it in exactly the way it needs to be used in that moment. Let me talk about the people around you. Because I think the people around you are one of the most underestimated factors in whether you use your time well or waste it. Jim Rohn said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think that's true, with some nuance. But what is absolutely true is that your environment, physical and social, either supports your growth or undermines it. And if you are surrounded by people who are comfortable with mediocrity, who are not growing, who make fun of ambition, who normalize complaining and cynicism and staying stuck, those people are costing you time. Not because they are bad people, but because we are deeply social creatures who regulate ourselves against the people around us. We unconsciously calibrate to our environment. And if your environment is calibrated low, you will be pulled toward low. Now, I'm not telling you to abandon everyone who isn't at the level you want to be. That's not what I mean. Family is family. History is history. Not everyone in your life needs to be on the same mission. But I am telling you to be intentional about who gets the most of your time and energy. To seek out people who are growing, who are building, who take their lives seriously, who challenge you to think bigger and be better. To spend time, even if it's just through books or podcasts or conversations, with people who have already been where you want to go, because growth is contagious. And so is stagnation. And so is fear. And so is courage. You get to choose which contagion you're most exposed to. There's a conversation that most people never have with themselves. And I think it might be the most important conversation of your life. It's the conversation where you sit down quietly without distraction and you ask yourself, what do I actually want? Not what I should want. Not what would make my parents proud or my partner happy or my peers impressed. What do I actually want? What do I actually want? What does my life look like when it's being lived in a way that feels true to me? Most people can't answer that question. Not because they haven't thought about it, but because they've been so conditioned to want what they're supposed to want, to chase what they're told is worth chasing, that they've lost contact with the signal of their own authentic desire. And so they run the race without ever asking whether the finish line is in a direction they actually want to go. This is why some people reach the top and feel nothing. They got everything they were told to want and found out that it wasn't what they actually wanted at all. The corner office, the big salary, the successful career in the field their parents respected. And they look around at their life and they feel a hollowness that success was supposed to fill but didn't. Because success at someone else's dream is just failure wearing a different costume. Know what you want. And I don't mean in a vague, I want to be happy kind of way. I mean specifically, what does a day in your life look like when you're living it the way you were meant to live it? Where you were meant to live it? Where are you doing? What does it feel like in your body to be living that life? Get specific, get concrete, write it down, visit it regularly. Because the clearer you are about where you're going, the better you become at saying yes to the things that get you there and no to the things that don't. No is one of the most powerful words in the vocabulary of someone who uses their time well. Every yes is a no to something else. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with who you're becoming, you are saying no to something that does. And the tragedy is that most people are saying yes to the wrong things, not because they're making conscious choices, but because they've never thought clearly enough about the right things to recognize the difference. Learning to say no to opportunities that seem great but aren't right for you, to people's requests that would drain you, to habits that feel comfortable but cost you your momentum. Learning to say no is one of the most important skills you can develop, and it gets easier. It really does. Once you're clear about where you're going, saying no to what would take you elsewhere stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like integrity. I want to talk about regret one more time because I think it's worth sitting with. There are two kinds of regret. The regret of action, things you did that you wish you hadn't, and the regret of inaction, things you didn't do that you wish you had. Research consistently shows that as people age, the regret of inaction grows larger. The things you tried and failed at you eventually make peace with. The things you never tried keep growing in the rearview mirror. They expand, they compound, they become what-if questions that have no answers. I don't want that for you. I want you to try. I want you to be the person who, at the end of their life, can say, honestly, I showed up. I gave it everything I had. I was scared and I tried anyway. I failed sometimes and I kept going. I used the time I was given to build something that mattered to me, to love the people I love as fully as I could, to become more of who I was meant to be each year than I was the year before. I want you to be able to say, I was here, really here, awake and present and grateful and alive. Because that's the thing, isn't it? The fact that you are here at all is extraordinary. You understand that, right? The odds against your existence are so astronomical that the idea of wasting your one life on smallness and distraction and fear should feel like a kind of sacrilege. You were made from stardust. Literally, scientifically, the atoms in your body were forged in ancient stars. You are the result of an unbroken chain of human lives stretching back through hundreds of thousands of years. Every ancestor you have found a way to survive long enough to love and create. And here you are at the end of that chain with more opportunity, more freedom, more access to knowledge and resources and possibility than any human being in history has ever had. And the question is, what are you going to do with it? Not someday, not when you're ready, not when things are better or easier or more convenient. Now, with this life, with this day, with this hour, I want to leave you with something I want you to carry out of this room today and into the rest of your life. It's not complicated. In fact, it's almost absurdly simple. But simple is not the same as easy. And the things that are simple and hard to do are usually the things that matter most. Every evening, tonight, and every night after, I want you to ask yourself one question. Just one. The question is this: did I use today? Not perfectly, not without distraction or failure or moments where you fell short of who you want to be. But honestly, did you move in some meaningful way toward the life you want to be living? Did you learn something? Did you build something? Did you love someone well? Did you do something brave, however small? Did you take one step, however shaky, in the direction of who you know you're meant to become? If the answer is yes, even if it was just one thing, even if it was just one moment of genuine intention in an otherwise ordinary day, then you are on the path. You are building, you are becoming. Keep going. And if the answer is no, if today was a day that passed through you without being used, don't punish yourself. Don't spiral. Don't add it to a pile of evidence against yourself. Just make a promise. Make one simple, small, concrete promise about tomorrow. One thing you will do differently. One moment you will be more intentional. One choice you will make that you didn't make today. And then keep that promise to yourself. To yourself, to be someone who keeps promises to yourself. Someone who keeps promises to yourself. Because here's the truth that I want you to take home today. The truth that everything I've said today has been leading toward. You are not going to get another life. This is not a dress rehearsal. The time that is passing right now, this minute, this hour, this year, is the real thing. This person. And the version of you that is possible, the fuller, braver, more alive version of you that you carry in your heart, that version is worth fighting for, worth sacrificing comfort for, worth risking failure for, worth showing up for day after day, even when no one else sees it, even when the results aren't there yet, even when your fear is loud and your faith is quiet. Start. Today, with something small if you have to, with something terrifying if you're ready. Because the first step is what separates the people who change their lives from the people who spend their lives thinking about changing. The first step is everything. Time is life. And your life. Your one extraordinary, unrepeatable, impossibly precious life. It's happening right now. Don't miss it. Go use your time.